yesterday I deleted the Bible app on my laptop, and now I need it. That's funny.
I don't have a bank account. Oh,
So we were seeing how David was finding refuge in different jurisdictions. Ukrainians are finding refuge in multiple jurisdictions. And we are grateful to the United States in particular for accepting 200,000 Ukrainians at this point to find refuge in this time of distress. He doesn't think in the abstract, he takes a very specific action. Hey guys, so greetings from the B-Dance here in New York City. We'd like to talk with you about a very interesting topic. So yesterday at church we had a brother, John, who used to play on a worship team. An amazing thing about him, he is fluent in Ukrainian. So he actually did a song for us in Ukrainian, and I came to him at the end and said, hey, thank you so much for breaking the stereotype that Americans speak only one language. and his wife speaks Ukrainian too, and so we had a good conversation with them. And think about it, if you learn a foreign language, it's a part of neuro-linguistic programming, because we have to go from one set of characters and related meanings to a totally different set. I was speaking with a couple of American friends, and I sent them something in English, and right below it I did it in Ukrainian, in Cyrillic. And my friend calls me, whoa, what was the second part about? And I said, well, it was in Ukrainian, the Cyrillic. And the point I was making about neuro-linguistic programming, that it's when we learn a new habit, or we learn something new, it's like destroying the old concrete and pouring new concrete. We are getting rid of the old neural pathways and forming new neural pathways, especially through neuro-linguistic programming. And so here, when we think about the field of text resolution, a person got really used to not tackling their text problem. That's their current anchor. That's their comfort zone, not to take care of it, postponing mechanism. And then in order to get to solving it, it requires stepping out of the comfort zone. That's why that example of learning a foreign language was very useful. Then the second thing, I was even more amazed when that brother John was sharing with us. He shared from Psalm 142. And the summary of the Psalm 142 is plea for relief. Plea for relief. And we'll read that psalm, and then we'll read the context and discuss it briefly. So I'll have Vasyl read first 4 verses of Psalm 142, and I'll read remaining 3 verses.
Psalm 142, when David was in the cave, a prayer. I cry aloud to the Lord, I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him my complaint, before him I tell my trouble. When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you who watch over my way. In the path where I walk, people have hidden a snare for me. Look and see, there is no one at my right hand, no one is concerned for me. I have no refuge, no one cares for my life.
I cry to you, Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Listen to my cry, for I am in desperate need. Rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are too strong for me. Set me free from my prison, that I may praise your name. Then the righteous will gather about me because of your goodness to me. And then he wanted to show us the context of the circumstances that David found himself in. So he read to us from the 1 Samuel 22, verses 1 to 4. So we'll get there to see David's context before writing the psalm. So the 1 Samuel 22, and Vasyl, why don't you read those?
Yeah.
Why don't you read those 4 verses?
David at Adullam and Mitzpach. It's a really interesting names of the places.
Yeah.
But David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam, where his brothers and his father's household heard about it. They went down to him there. All those who were in the distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. From there David went to Mizpah in Moab, and said to the king of Moab, "Would you let my father and mother come and stay with you until I learn what God will do for me?" So he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him as long as David was in the stronghold.
Yeah, so I mean the whole share of John was like super interesting to me, because he says in his Bible, Psalm 142 had the title "Plea for Relief," and I'm thinking, wow, it sounds like it reminded me immediately of a chief tax relief of our company. And then here it talks about cave, and it talks about people being in debt, because it says all those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, or David, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. And I'm like, now he talks about debt. And I was like, and we are dealing with tax debt, so I was like amazed at the whole setup of John's share.
It's like times it's similar when it was in the time of David. Now something that always stays the same. It's just the same circumstances. Nothing basically changes, I guess.
Yeah, people were in debt then. Some people are in debt now.
Yeah. Yes, funny is our reality.
You see, like, and then we talk about the government. Like we talk about the IRS debt. It's debt to the U.S. government, and then in this, we read about different jurisdictions too, about different governments. Because here's David is fleeing from Judah, so we talk about jurisdiction of Judah, but he has to flee because he's being chased. So he flees to a different jurisdiction. He asked King of Moab to take care of his mother and father and his family. So he wants to find like refuge in a different jurisdiction. So it's like we had the same thing. It's like, okay, something is not working out in this jurisdiction, maybe I'll go to a different jurisdiction. Or if something is not, this state is not most advantageous for my activity, maybe I should do my business activity in a different state. And here we have 50 states in America to choose from. We have related territories, northern Mariana Islands, Samoa, we have Puerto Rico nearby, so we have multiple jurisdictions in the US to choose from. I'd like us to focus on the context of the cave and what it really represents. So Vasyl, when we talk about the cave, like what do you see? So they were in the cave physically.
Yeah.
But do you see any relation, like any relation to this being in the psychological cave?
Oh, for sure. Today I was really thinking how psychological actually influence physical and the other way around, because what inspired me in this passage when it says that David says, "I will see what God will do for me." So he basically gathered around him people who were like in a bad situation, depressed, and didn't know what to do maybe next, and he held strongly to the bigger reality, ultimate reality. Theologians say often not alternative reality.
It's ultimate reality.
Yeah. So, and it's really inspired me because so many people may have these struggles in life. Could be taxes, could be something really that such as this passage, maybe they chased physically, like in maybe some people in Ukraine.
Yeah. Like, could you elaborate more about the situation? How people in Ukraine find themselves in a cave, so to speak, and especially from the multi-jurisdictional level too, that they have to flee and so on.
Yeah, maybe like a lot of territory as we may think, like surrounded by the enemy.
Yeah, it's
right?
landlocked. Yeah.
And many people still holding to the ultimate reality, which is God, who is providing psychological, emotional comfort. Even there is like death and very bad stuff.
For some of the families, there are kids being killed. They're little kids. Yeah.
Yeah, man, and this is very very unusual, but still, the people who are managing to just step out, like, and do unusual thing, maybe even put their belief and trust for better, that's where change happens. That's when we can do and become what God wants us to do and become.
Yeah, it's like in that verse that we were saved by grace and not by works, so anybody can boast. For the works, we are God's masterpiece, created for the works that He prepared in advance for us to do. So if we get in sync with God's will for life, we'll find specific works He has for each of us to do. So He appointed us for the times like this. And some people are there, like actively in Ukraine, in so much distress. As we were saying, some of them are losing their kids. Imagine the level of distress. And yet, they quite a few of them manage to stay resilient, and nation as a whole manages to stay resilient, especially because a lot find their solace in God as the ultimate refuge. And then to touching a multi-jurisdictional perspective, so at this point, essentially half the Ukraine's population, close to 20 million, were displaced, about 14 million internally, and 6 million went abroad. So we were seeing how David was finding refuge in a different jurisdiction. Ukrainians are finding refuge in multiple jurisdictions. And we are grateful to the United States in particular for accepting 200,000 Ukrainians at this point to find refuge in this time of distress. But then when we talk about the US, then we switch to the domestic challenges, such as the debt to your own government.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody accumulated tax debt, not because these people are bad, but they maybe something difficult happened, maybe they lost their loved one, or they had difficult patch in their lives, and they put their taxes in the back burner. And now in this specific jurisdiction in the United States, they happen to owe the debt to the government. Vasyl, could you speak briefly, how do you see that situation being similar to finding yourself in the cave?
This is something that a person or let's say a family maybe got procrastinated for a long time. So first it's maybe to discover and be aware of something, and then we can look, okay, what's the point of solution. Maybe. So I heard about the book Atomic Habits. I was excited. Maybe also can encourage somebody and myself to read it first, because I just heard about it. But it says that those small habits, atomic habits, basically, atom is the smallest thing
at the least level.
Yeah. It's really what's gonna drive the perspective of our life, and when we consistent focusing on improvement in a bad situation, even it's gonna be as a snowball over time, over months or over a year, and just want to encourage that this whole thing, maybe with money or something, it can look different and can be resolved as a result of small atomic actions.
Yeah, so it reminds me of that saying that it all starts with our thoughts, then we speak those words, then we take action, then actions become habits, then habits become a life, the accumulations of actions, and that leads us to our destiny.
Yeah.
So it starts from the smallest atomic level, but if we miss there, then the entire trajectory would be amiss. We wouldn't be achieving results we want. Because effectively, if we're trying to solve something, we need three things. We need hope that that's possible, and David clearly believed that God can provide a hope. We need agency and believe, yeah, I can do something here to make the difference. My actions matter. It's not just to chance or circumstance. And the third one, pathway thinking. I should say have a clear path. So David doesn't just think in the abstract. His family is in danger. He obviously cares for his father and mother, his family. Yeah. He doesn't think in the abstract. He takes a very specific action. He goes to the king of Moab, to different jurisdictions we were talking about, and say, please, would you take my family in? Please help me. He takes a very concrete, specific action, not just abstract thinking. So we're talking about three things. We must have hope, we must have agency, we believe we are capable to change it, we must have clear pathway thinking.
Yeah.
What do you think, Vasyl?
I really like it, and the example of David, it's also humbleness when he's writing the Psalm 142. You can feel that he's not only relying on himself, so he finds people and he finds God, and in comfort in those two, because sometimes we just need the community or somebody to give us another perspective, push us forward, so we can go beyond our own thinking, only our own thinking, right? And life is always discovering new things, like looking forward, all the being in the present, right? But
it's a joy. It's a daily joyful journey of discovery.
Yeah. So the humbleness, I guess, and being real with yourself, with your surroundings, really.
Yeah, and when we still mentioned about the community, so think carefully about 1 Samuel 22, when it talks about people that banded around David. So it says here, all those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. So often when we feel down, very bad situation, you're like, what can I do here? I cannot do anything. How can I help? We just want to quit.
Yeah.
And I remember when the war in Ukraine started, so I'm talking with my uncle in Kyiv, and he's like, Vasyl, it's really rough, like Kyiv looks really rough, I don't even know what to say and do. And I'm like, do you think like you could start something with your neighbors, we could get some get-togethers or events, and you could be there for each other, practice that ministry of presence and encourage each other. And he's like, you know what, I haven't even thought of that. But that should be pretty easy. I can gather some of my friends and neighbors, and we can have some get-togethers like that. And you see, small things. It doesn't have some grandiose major things. Small thing. I live in this building, in this apartment in Kyiv, okay? So I have my neighbors, I have my friends from work who are in distress. Let me see how we can organize something so that we can form the community, be there for each other. So here with the tax resolution, one of the things we do is we have this accountability calls. So it's for those who are willing to engage with the other members of the community dealing through similar tax challenges. So what we do, we get them together and let them share about their challenges, especially the ones who already solved it.
Yeah.
So the ones who solved it, remember I was saying hope is very important. So the ones who already solved their problem are sharing with the ones who are still have this problem, and that helps people who haven't solved their problem yet, the inactive distress. It helps them create their own pathway. It may look different for them, but it gets their wheels moving in that direction. So for me, accountability is very important, because even today Vasyl and I said we're gonna meet at 8:30, and we
super early, right? New York.
Yeah, and we wanted we wanted to have accountability. We wanted to have the constraint, because when you create a constraint and you have accountability, okay, I meet with somebody at this specific time, there is much more likelihood you can do it, and you don't have to be in this accountability group if you don't want to, but it's available as an opportunity for you to feel that sense of connection and get the sense of hope for your own case.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I thought about is about Viktor Frankl, who talks about the horrors of the Nazi persecution camps and Holocaust. So he said, one thing I had to decide in the camp. He said I could really go down. I could really feel let down and abandoned by everybody, and give up on everything, or I could see, okay, I'm in the camp right now. How can I encourage these people who are here with me? Just managing my sphere of influence. We can have very big sphere of concern, but saying, okay, these are my present circumstances. How do I exert influence in my sphere of influence? That was his sphere of influence. He is in the concentration camp. So he felt a burden to encourage those people and be there for those people. And then it also ties with this so-called Stockdale paradox. American General Stockdale, he said he observed a lot of people, the captives in concentration camps and in the war, and he said that the ones who made it, and who made it with the good psychological health, were not the ones who said we'll get out by Easter or we'll get out by Christmas, and many of them would die of despondency and a broken heart and lost hope. But the ones who made it out strong were the ones who didn't say we know specifically when we get out, but they said we don't know exactly when we get out, but we will get out. That resilient optimism. I don't say so like I want to get out and the government can take, say, for offers in compromise, or it can take, some cases can take 12 to even 18 months. So we can't be like too attached to timing, because it takes a while, but it's knowing if I take the right steps, eventually I will get out of there.
Yeah. The resilience is one of my favorite words, honestly, for a long time, maybe a year or more. And I like the example that you mentioned about concentration camps, and there was also similar things in the Soviet Union, where persecuted by the government for faith, for
political position, such as like pro-Ukrainian position, say,
and things like that. So and people who survived also, I heard the story that they always choose to do at least one decision on their own after they had to do a certain amount of work, let's say cut the trees or do work with the rocks, whatever. They always did their decision was last decision, means I will do one more, I'll cut one more tree, or I'll pull up one more rock. And this thing gave them hope and the will to live, to prosper, even in this crazy circumstances.
And what Vasyl mentions is crucial for agency, for the agency factor. It's really believing I can make a difference. My actions do matter. Even these micro actions, as Vasyl was referring to atomic habits, until I realize that I am a decision maker and my actions do matter, I'll be relying on chance of circumstances. I'll be believing things are happening to me rather than thinking things are happening for me. I'll be in a victim mindset.
Yeah.
Until I realize, as Vasyl said, even in the concentration camp, they said, I still can make my decisions. And even because, even if they break me externally, but in my mind, I don't want to lose that will to live, live to prosper, because I have my own internal world, and that one is out of reach for people who may break me externally and put me in the confinement externally. But internally, I can protect my inner world to cultivate that connection with God, with community, and so on. So, any parting words for our audience?
Yeah, I would just say it's all possible. Everything possible for those who believe this is from Bible, but also possible if you maybe think that there's more, there's hope in every situation. Yeah.
It takes from the atomic habit, from the first step. You see, so your first step, we can make it. And remember, we said David didn't think in the abstract.
Mm-hmm.
He took super concrete action by seeking refuge from the king Moab for his family. How does it look like for you right now? Well, you can reach out to me regarding your tax problem by 929-399-9349, and I'll repeat it again, 929-399-9349. You can reach me out by phone or email at vasyl@achievetaxrelief.com, and we'll post that email in the email in the below the video, so you can take the concrete action. We can get the conversation going. You can take the atomic habit. We can get on the path of getting to the solution. Thank you guys for listening. We look forward to be again with you soon. Take care.